Good evening. Welcome to the Glynn County Board of Education meeting for August the 10th. I'll call it to order at 6 o'clock or 6:01, Ms. Pearl. At this time, I will turn it over to Mrs. Sams for the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we pray that you're with us tonight in making the decisions that we'll be making. I pray that you're with us in this school year for our children and our teachers and our parents and our community. I thank you for the blessings that you provide for us, and I pray that you're with us through the situations that we'll face in the coming year. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Sams. All right. This time I will turn it over to the spotlight on Glynn County, Ms. Kate.
Fight your way through.
Good. How are you?
In April, Goodyear Elementary was presented the Georgia Family Friendly Partnership Schools Initiative Award by the Department of Education and State Superintendent Richard Wood. Dr. Dawson is here tonight to share how this led to student success and family engagement at her school.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. This is the same for students and parents and families. Just like all of our schools, it has always been Goodyear's intent to strengthen the connection that we have with our families in not just a well-meaning way, but a more purposeful one. 2 years ago, Goodyear applied for and was accepted into the Family Friendly Partnership Schools cohort with the Georgia Department of Education. It was the summer of 2010 that the Georgia Department of Education launched the Family Friendly Partnership School Initiative to assist Title I schools, families, and communities in working together to create a welcoming environment that leads to increased student achievement. As a result of our experience, we learned firsthand of the high-quality customer service philosophy and strategies used by the king of customer service, Chick-fil-A. Only 5 schools would be selected, of which we were one. During this 2-year-long process, though we had a surprise factor called the pandemic, we reviewed all of our schools' communication processes and learning opportunities that would target families. Applying our new learning and incorporating feedback from our stakeholders, we refined our parent engagement efforts to not only be responsive to our families' needs, but now we know how to anticipate them. That is how we show our parents that we care. Because of these, we are proud to say that this past April, Goodyear joined the 5% of schools in the state by being awarded Georgia's Family Friendly Partnership Schools recognition. And with that, I wanted to thank again Dr. Spence for joining us. We were awarded this by State Superintendent Richard Woods. He visited Goodyear. We shared with him our events that we will hold. This, of course, is pre-COVID, and where we would hold family nights for our parents, where they would not only engage in activities within their own families, but between families, making a connection outside of the school. We shared with the state superintendent our initiative back in 2016 regarding social emotional learning, which today we refer to mental wealth, mental healthness. And we identified ourselves as one of the leading schools that target students and families in connecting and engaging in the community. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Great
Just
job,
do have
everybody.
one comment.
Sure.
I drive by Goodyear Elementary every day for the last 20 years. I've never seen the traffic jam like I saw today. And that means there are parents trying to drop their kids off. There's family engagement. Things are going on at Goodyear. And no, did I like the traffic jam? No. But did I like the family involvement? yes, it made me smile, so thank you.
Oh, absolutely, and I have to say to that, this was one of the, usually the first day of school is always backed up.
Right.
But today it was a very different one too, Dr. Yergin, for myself. We do have a lot more families coming in. Even last night, I was just sharing just now before the meeting, that even last night for open house, we had outstanding numbers in our schools. So I think our parents are ready to get back to learning.
That is great.
Well, at the welcome breakfast, I wanted to bring it up, but I might make a motion sometime to change the mascot back to the Dragons. I went to Goodyear, and that was back in the 70s. I don't know when the mascot changed, but what? I don't know when we changed it. I can't remember, but a long time ago. But that was a great turnout there too. So, good job.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Can I take my?
You deserve it.
Just leave it there for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Dawson.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us down to the next item, which is citizens address the board. I'll try to speak up because I know we got a full house out there. A little preamble before we get started. The Board of Education has adopted a policy that permits citizens, under certain circumstances, to address the board on a variety of topics of general concern to the operation of our schools. We welcome visitors to board meetings and are interested in hearing from the taxpayers and patrons of our school system. We have a few simple rules for public comment. Each person wishing to address the board must sign the roster. Each person is limited to 5 minutes, and the public comment portion of the meeting will not exceed 30 minutes. Any citizen who has a specific complaint involving an employee must first address this issue with the superintendent, and if not resolved, then may request to speak with the board. However, certain matters involving personnel and students must be heard in closed session. The superintendent will inform you whether your complaint is one which should be referred to an executive session with the board. By signing this sheet, you agree to abide by these rules. All right, that brings us to the first person, Mr. Lincoln West.
I appreciate the opportunity to address this board. My name is Linton West. I'm a citizen of Glynn County and a proud father of a soon-to-be junior at Glynn Academy. I support the current policy regarding mask recommendations, and I adamantly oppose mask mandates for our school system. We, the parents of students, should make the health choices for our kids. If a parent wants their child to wear a mask, it is my understanding they are free to do so and wear one every day. Or if the family feels truly uncomfortable, they can participate in virtual learning. All citizens of this county have either had COVID, had the vaccine, or have been offered the vaccine. No one should follow the CDC's anti-science mask mandates. Children are not any more at risk from COVID than the seasonal flu. Every adult who works in our school system has either had the vaccine or had their chance to get vaccinated. There are no reasons for mask mandates, part-time schools, or any lockdown measures. Children are falling woefully behind and are being harmed physically and psychologically by the tactics being used to keep them from the classroom and masked up since 2020. We should not allow it again. The CDC has done many studies on COVID, but none have been done to gauge the physical and mental harm being done by forcing children to mask up 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. We are the ones actually standing up for science. We are the ones standing up for freedom against mandates, lockdowns, and bureaucratic power grabs. More and more people like myself are willing to stand up and say enough is enough. This is hurting our children. I appreciate the board's current position and hope we don't allow folks from outside our county try to dictate what we should do with our policy in creating a safe environment for our children to learn. I appreciate this opportunity to address the board.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Diane Bowen.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the board. I also would like to engage and congratulate the board on making a wise decision to leave it up to parents. Just from our community, we've had 2 schools last year who managed to get through the whole year with a mask optional learning without any significant outbreaks or hospitalizations. I am a physician and a surgeon and a mother. I had boys that were in the public school system until COVID broke out, and we had about 5 months of distance learning, which essentially lost my eldest his 5th grade year, which he had to repeat when we moved him. So I want to say that in my training, one of the things I took an oath was to first do no harm. And when I'm looking at something, when I'm trying to figure out what is the right treatment for someone, I ask myself, does it work? Is it safe? And is it needed? We are now in the 21st century living under the results of the germ theory of infection, which is we can come up with magic bullets and kill whatever we find. And that has led to antibiotic resistant superbugs. A thing that I use in my practice to help patients have a successful surgical outcome is something called the host theory of health. Hippocrates, who is the father of medicine, said, "It is more important to know what kind of person has a disease than to know what sort of a disease a person has." Now, I do have younger children, and so I'm going to translate that to something that we all can understand. The 3 little pigs would say, it is better to live in a brick house when you're dealing with a wolf. So meaning by that, if we can put an emphasis on optimizing our children's health, even in Dr. Fauci, in interviews, he says, well, yeah, I take vitamin D and I take some C, but those have not been, prevention of wellness has not been anywhere on the radar by any of those who are regularly on the TV. And so when it comes to masking, I ask myself, is it effective? Does it work? Is it safe? And is it necessary? Well, I live in masks when I'm in surgery. And what I'm going to tell you is that after 2 hours, you're supposed to change your mask out because it has outlived its usefulness. Okay, you need to look at what environment, what kind of mask. All of these are like, I have a whole host of literature that I'm happy for the board to have. If that, you guys want to have that, I'm updating the information on my website. In studies, 40% of surgical masks had viral penetration. Now, all of us have been wearing masks at one time or another. I make my living wearing masks, and I'm going to tell you, when you wear a mask for any length of time, that mask gets moist. A moist mask is not just some neutral, it is a hazard because the moistness in that mask basically becomes a petri dish for bacteria and any other kind of germs that you want to talk about. And besides that, masking also causes an increase in CO2 levels. That's called hypercapnia. We are not designed by our Creator to live on CO2. And as a result, there's issues with headaches, with dizziness, with distraction. Long-term breathing through a mask increases your risk of mouth breathing chronically, which for children is going to alter facial growth. And you're bypassing the God-given immune system of the little hairs in your nose which filter out things. We've all been watching the Olympics recently. How many of these top-class Olympians have you seen wearing masks while they're exercising? Well, if that is good for the Olympians, I'm just going to ask the board to continue doing what it's doing, which is don't make children try to sit in the classroom 8 hours a day wearing a mask, which is mental exercise. So my next point is nutrient optimization. All the data is in there. We need to be looking at vitamin D levels, which are chronically low. People who are on the pale side of the spectrum and the dark side of the spectrum have a tendency to have low vitamin D levels. That needs to be looked at. So in conclusion, since we care about our children, we should be making more aware to parents and families the role that a healthy body makes to preventing any kind of disease, much less COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Jennifer and Timothy Steele.
So, I mean, we're not doctors or anything, but we do have young kids. We have pre-K kids, we have kindergarten kids, we have 3rd grade, 5th grade, we have all different
He has a big family.
growing ages. So I had a pre-Ker last year who's going into kindergarten, and I saw the effects of having her 8 hours a day wear the same dirty mask, the mask that they have to take off with their hands, put on a desk. I mean, these teachers are not babysitters. they're not taking it off every 20, 30, she detailed it every 2 hours if you're not changing it in a non-sterile environment. It's useless. They're collecting those germs and they're rebreathing it all day long, which in turn made her sick every single week. By Friday, she was sick. I took her to her doctor every single week because the fear was the doctor or the teachers were sending her home. She has COVID. She has to get tested. She has to get this. It's counterproductive. We sent her to the doctor who said it's the mask. There's nothing we can do. If they're requiring the mask, you have to wear it. And it made her sick every single week. But by Friday, she took it off all weekend, free breathing. She was perfectly fine. No symptoms going back to school. But by Wednesday, same thing over again. I mean, pretty much every study I was going to touch on, everything I was going to detail, she just covered every single one of them.
Y'all did great.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just going on the personal end of it. These are our kids. I mean, we actually see them every day, and we see the effects that it's having on them, their mental state, just the drowsiness. They're not learning anything. What they're learning is that they hate masks. It's giving them rashes. It's affecting the CO2 that she was talking about, all that stuff. We can actually see it in our own children. I'm sure there's 15 people out here that'll say the same thing. I see it when my kids go home, and we live it every single day.
You can see the change in them from the past year. They've become outgoing people who become people that have been isolated. That was our big concern. We're like, our children are changing because of this, and it doesn't seem like a positive way. I'll give you a prime example. We have a 13-year-old who loves band, loves it. Glynn County didn't have that last year. He asked us, can I move in with my mother in Graham County, who has no mask mandates, no social distancing. I lost my son, who I've had for 13 years, to a mask policy because he wanted to do band. It upsets me, it makes me sad. But I support my son because I'd rather him enjoy his young life before he becomes like all of us and has to do things like this. It is super sad. And I support the optional, we support the optional mask, and we just hope y'all continue with it. Really.
We don't want to take away the option. You all have the option to do exactly what you want. We just want the option to not take our kids and actually affect their health, mental stability, and introvert them because they can't even go close to their friends. They can't talk to their friends. Their mouths are covered. They get yelled at by their teachers last year for even turning and facing a friend. I mean, and that's just detrimental for kids in the socialization aspect. And we just don't want that. That's pretty much, that's it for us.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
And thank y'all.
Next we have Mr. Richard Davis.
Thank you, Board of Education members, for being willing to serve. Thank you, Superintendent Spence. My name is Richard Davis. This is Davey Sapp. And I want to thank you just once again for the opportunity. We're living in a very unique time in the history of not just our nation, but also the world. This is a time where we don't just need to do it because I said to when it comes to government mandates. We need to question things and be open to the results of where those questions may lead us. I'm not here demanding my rights or my freedoms. I'm here to speak for those who are not here to speak. Too often we can fall prey to the us versus them mentality because the enemies of our freedom know that a house divided can't stand. They've tried to say that you're not wearing masks because you only care about you, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. I'm here because I see our freedoms being eroded away very quickly, and this is a now or never moment. I'm going to touch on a few key bullet points about masks and then move on. Truth is, masks do not work against respiratory viruses. There was someone who was up here before me that's already communicated that very well, and the dangers of masks. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. We go a lot by our feelings. If I were to get in my car with a pool noodle and think I'm being protected, it's more dangerous for me than anything. That's what the masks do. They give us a false sense of security. Do they do anything? Possibly, but not. There's more detriment than there is good. And so if I were to ride around not have my seatbelt on, but I've got my little pool noodle, I would look like an idiot. And I don't want to look like an idiot. We need to question things. Too often we're told, just don't question anything. We have to ask ourselves, why the censorship? Why can't we question anything anymore? Why are the treatments for the virus being squelched? Why the push for the vaccine when 2 teenagers here locally have died after receiving it, and reports of people in the hospital with tremor symptoms like what we've seen on Instagram stories? We're told just to comply and don't ask any questions. I thought about Rosa Parks this morning, and there was a section, there was 10 rows on the bus that she got on that was reserved for the white people. She was in that 11th row, but what happened is there was another person that got on, and they said, hey, you're going to have to give up your seat. And she said, I'm not giving up my seat. There was 3 other people with her. Okay, guess what those 3 people did? They gave up their seat. I believe that Rosa Parks knew that if the boundary keeps moving, it's just going to keep getting further and further back. She didn't. I'm sure there were people that said, man, just comply, just go with the flow. And what happened is she said, no, because it's not about me. It's about the future generations. That's what this is about. Whenever we see our freedoms gradually going by the wayside, we need to say, man, enough is enough. I don't even like coming here and speaking. I don't like this stuff. I support you guys. You guys are here. You're making a difference. But I think that it's time for us to be involved. It's time for us to speak out. And why is it like this? We need more people like a Rosa Parks this day and age to say, hey, what's going on here, to question it. But whenever we question it, it's like, you need to be quiet. So thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you, even those with differing opinions. I just wanted you to hear my side. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Laura Carana.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Laura Carana, and I'm about to change things up a little bit. I have 2 daughters in elementary school in this school system. I'm a single mom, and I work full-time in clinical research. I have no affiliation with our local healthcare system, but I do have a master's degree in public health. I'm here speaking on behalf of A Better Glynn and Women's Voices of Glynn County, in addition to myself as an individual member of this community, a public health scientist, and a mother. After your meeting on July 27th, where you voted to start the school year under normal operations in the green zone, I individually emailed all 7 of you and Dr. Spence asking why you voted against following the current CDC guidelines, which recommend universal masking in schools. I want to start by thanking Ms. Sams for responding to me and carrying on a respectful, informative email correspondence over the last few days, which is more than I got from anyone else on this board. Mr. Mansell is the only other board member who responded to me, but his response focused on politics rather than science, which is not the matter at hand, frankly. I understand the current framework you've laid out for COVID-19 prevention in our school system, and I understand that it's intended to be more responsive and flexible than what we had last year, and I think those are admirable goals. And if I were explaining it to my 3rd grader, I would build a little bar chart with Legos and explain it like this. In the whole school system, when less than 1% of COVID tests come back positive, we're in the green zone, like this Lego here. No mask requirements in school buildings, no social distancing, normal operations. If our test positivity rate goes over 1% in the whole school system, we go to yellow. Mask required, social distancing. If our test positivity rate goes up to 3%, we go to red. School buildings are shut down, distance learning for everybody. Less than 1%, 1%, 3%. Now, this might work when you have complete, reliable data on which to make these decisions about moving back and forth between these levels, but we don't have complete data on this yet because students weren't back in school until today. We have some data on the test positivity rate in some teachers and staff, but they've only been back less than a week. And we might have some data on students whose parents have chosen to notify the schools about their tests before the kids even start attending. Where we do have complete data is this same metric, test positivity rate, in our county at large. And when you guys voted 2 weeks ago for us to start the school year in the green zone, the test positivity rate in Glynn County, as reported by the Department of Health, was over 11%. I ran out of red Legos to use. The current test positivity rate in Glynn County as of 4 days ago is over 20%. This is where we are as a community right now. This is the best data we have to make informed, wise decisions for our kids, teachers, and staff about where to start our school year with these preventive measures. You guys are talking about 1% and 3% rates in our schools, while our community is reeling from a 20% test positivity rate. Our hospital is setting records for inpatient COVID cases, and our ICU beds are full. When we're at the beginning of the school year and you don't have complete data to see what our true test positivity rate is in the school system, but you do have data about the community within which all of our schools sit and which you can't separate our schools from, how can you come to the conclusion that we should operate as if we're in the green zone? The policies we're talking about are preventive measures. That means they have to be implemented before our kids and staff are exposed, before the highly transmissible Delta variant gains a foothold in our school system. Saying that Glynn County is going to start the school year in the green zone is like saying you're going to go to the beach and you'll put on sunscreen if you start to get pink. That's not how sunscreen works. And that's not how COVID-19 prevention measures work either. Just ask all the unvaccinated folks in our ICU down the street. I really, really hope that weeks and months from now, folks will play back the recording of this meeting and laugh at me for overreacting to what turned out to be a very mild COVID season in our schools. Because I don't want to be right about this. And because this is personal for me. My kids are in these schools and they are too young to be vaccinated. My grandfather went to the Brunswick ER yesterday morning with an urgent medical issue requiring surgery and stayed in the ER for over 24 hours because they couldn't find him an inpatient bed until this afternoon because of the influx of COVID cases. If we don't implement preventive measures now, before things get bad, then they will get bad. We're going to blow right through yellow and go straight to red. And we'll be right back where we were 18 months ago when my third grader was a first grader doing distance learning in the spring of 2020, and we will have learned nothing. Please take another vote tonight and move us into the yellow zone, effective immediately, until kids have been back in school a few weeks and we have a few weeks worth of data to reassess and make an informed decision about what to do next. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, next we have Elijah Henderson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
A lot of people are going to talk about science and math and medicine. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about history. One is part of the Glynn County school system. I was born and raised here in Glynn County. I used to come to Dr. Spencer's door every morning to court my future wife. We've raised 5 children so far, 3 of them Glynn County Public School System raised. We have 2 twins in 1st grade. That's Attila Marsh. Our oldest twin, he's 8 minutes older, is immunocompromised. As a father and a military veteran, I'm not used to feeling vulnerable. But as a father of an immunocompromised kid, I always feel vulnerable. And this environment makes it worse. I also suffer from a mental health illness. My trigger is my children. It sends me into very bad depression. So a lot of people talk about the impact on children to wear masks. I know what the impact on me is, sending my kid to school, knowing that he's at risk all the time. We put our children in masks. I want to commend the board on the plan that you guys made. The plan is a good plan, except it has one bad assumption. It assumes that no one in Glynn County has COVID. No one in the school system has COVID. And we're going to wait 2 weeks until we get data in order to make a decision. That's 2 weeks my kids are going to be compromised because we're not using the community data in order to make that decision. Now, why do I say I'm going to talk about history? The last time there was a big to-do about children in schools was 1954. The Brown v. Board was broke because of a child sociology test the Clark doll experiment. Said that children were negatively impacted by segregation. Completely broke the case. Glynn County Public School System didn't care about that SCOTUS decision. In fact, in 1963, I noticed today that the board site says that in '63 we became a school of choice system. However, the truth is, in 1963, Glynn County Board had a federal court decision go against them, where Harris versus Glynn County Board, you wouldn't, the system wouldn't let 6 minority children into the school system. I think that's completely ironic that that would be celebrated on the site when it was a forced decision. It was a court order. In fact, that court order still exists today for Glynn County. Glynn County doesn't make any moves toward unitary status. And it was a highly political decision then too. And we understand the context that we're in now is mostly political. It's not really about science. It's not really about math. It's not really about medicine. It's about politics. I hate that my kid is at risk because of politics. Now, I make a substantial income. I can afford to put my kid in private school. My kid's already been accepted into the Georgia public school homeschooling system. I could pull them out of the school system right now, today. But I believe in Glynn County public school systems. Again, I'm a product. My wife is a product. My Mercer graduate, my soon-to-be Georgia Southern graduate who intends to come back to the public school system here in Glynn County to teach when he graduates next year. We've always taught belief in the system, regardless of the past, regardless of the flaws, regardless of the politics. We believe that we can do good work here and make changes because change needs to be made. We can make progress because progress needs to be made. All that was asked was 2 weeks of masking. 2 weeks of me not having any anxiety at home. 2 weeks of me not having to go see my therapist because I hit another lull of depression. Now, I'm not here to beg your sympathy. I'm here to plead with your conscience. Not for me, not just for my kid, but for all kids. That we don't allow politics to sway our decisions. That we allow the community data to determine what we do in these first 2 weeks until we have good data to use the good system that you guys put in place. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Miss Annabelle Beasley.
Hi, I'm Annabelle Beasley, and I have 5 grandchildren in the school system, and I'm here to plead their case. I'm asking that you do not mandate the mask. If parents choose to have their children wear masks, they can feel free to do so, but that's preventing our kids. I had a parent tell me the other day that wearing the mask in school this past year caused her child to have brain issues. He says he couldn't think because he had to keep that mask on his face. And it's like Dr. Bowen talked about the mask, the filthy masks that lay on the ground, kids put them back on their mouth. That's a breeding ground for germs. How are we going to keep our children safe? And I think we have nutrition. We need to nourish our kids before we go to school. You know, we can't have the school system be the parent. The school's there to teach our kids. We are the parents, and it's our responsibility to take care of our kids at the house. And I'm going to give the rest of the time to Dr. Bowen because she wants to refute some of the questions that were brought forth. Thank you.
I'm not here to refute anything, but to agree that we should be not making, and y'all should not make this decision, nor should anybody make this decision based upon politics, but upon facts. There are no studies that show effective protection of children by masking, but there are plenty of studies that show optimizing a child's vitamin D status will help them. Talking about statistics, Glynn County, when you look at the statistics from the the Department of Health, there have been 3 hospitalizations under the age of 17 and 0 deaths. Now, all of those are sad things. When you look at the state of Georgia, there were 11 deaths under the age of 17. But what's equally sad is that in 2019, we had 59 children who committed suicide, and we had children going to emergency rooms with mental health issues and going to their doctors with mental health issues. I am convinced by all the research that I've done that putting masks on children, while it may make people feel less anxious, it is a feeling. It is like putting a paper leash on a tiger. It does nothing to help the virus from hurting that person or spreading around. So again, it gets back to this host theory. We each need to be responsible for ourselves and our families' health optimization. Simple things that again, I'm a keep it simple, silly kind of person. We should be talking about things like nasal spray to wash. The solution to pollution is dilution. We should be talking to people about vitamin D levels. I cannot tell you how many young women I have seen whose vitamin D levels are in the pits, 15 when it should be above 50. So I just thank you that I just want you to be aware that there are many things that each of us can do for ourselves and our children to be a brick house against whatever wolves come, whether it's COVID or anything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gary Coates.
Good evening. How are you? Thanks for letting us speak. We appreciate it. Much of what I was going to talk about has already been covered, so I'm not going to rehash everything. You guys have heard it all. But we do live in a world with numerous threats, and it's easy to forget COVID-19 is just one threat. Many seem intent on trying to eradicate the virus. This is, to borrow from the words of Stanford University Professor of Medicine Jerry Vaiacha and George Mason University Economics Donald Boudreau. It's a dangerous, costly fantasy. The effort to eradicate COVID-19 through coercive means is wrought with great damage. The harms are so vast and so visible that it's easy to overlook the harms of these policies that have inflicted on our children, scholastically, emotionally, and mentally, even though there have been almost nothing to fear from it. This has got to end. We can't base our decisions on fear. Everyone has threats everywhere. We're teaching our children to run and not stand up and think for themselves. Any parent that wants to mask up their children, that's great. Allow them to mask them up. That's their prerogative. We live in that kind of world. I will say that if masks are so effective, then having their children masked should prevent them from getting COVID. If those masks are as effective as they say they're having, then they're good. They've got nothing to worry about. So let's just be common sensical. Use a common sense approach here and think of our children. And that's really all I've got to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's everybody on the list, and I was going to turn it over to Mr. McDowell. He has some guests that want to speak as part of the.
I do.
Yep.
It's the medical professionals from the hospital. The first thing I'd like to say before I even bring them in here, Dr. Bowen, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends mandating masks as of July 19, 2021. That's your organization. It's not a back and forth. We're not going to get into that. But feel free to look that up. Number two, do we allow shoes in school? Because they hurt my feet. I got fat feet, and I am not kidding. But I got to wear shoes. Brunswick High. I went to Brunswick High in 1978. I could smoke there. Can we smoke there?
No.
Still no. Okay. Today's paper. Virus hospital. How's it say? Virus hospitalizations puts health system to the brink. I would like to ask Mr. Schernick to come in now. I'm going to pass these out for you. Give you the numbers. They are certainly worse than they've ever been. I don't make it up. They're real numbers.
kidding.
I'd just like to make my little presentation here, just hopefully it's being shared with you as well. But you know, as schools throughout Glynn County and Southeast Georgia region prepare to begin the 2021-2022 school year, the leaders of those organizations, including yourselves, are faced with some difficult decisions to help ensure the health and well-being of the students entrusted to your care. It is clear that the number of COVID-19 cases are surging again. The Community Transmission Index, that's the number of newly confirmed cases over the last 14 days for Glynn County, which is considered high if it is greater than 100 cases per 100,000 people, stands at 1,269 cases per 100,000 as of today, having risen precipitously over the last 2 to 3 weeks. It was 337 on July 27th, only 63 as of July 1st, and was as low as 20 cases per 100,000 on June 19th. So clearly over the past short time horizon, things have changed dramatically. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, more than 4 million children and adolescents in the United States have been infected with COVID-19, representing about 14% of all cases. While many children fare better than adults and only experience mild COVID-19 symptoms, thousands have been hospitalized and several hundred have lost their lives. The spike in COVID-19 cases among children is cause for even more concern as we approach the school year. The Delta variant is the current prevalent strain, and according to the CDC, it is much more contagious than the original virus, particularly among children. This is in contrast to the variant that circulated last year, which led to more elderly individuals becoming infected and saw less spread among children. Face masks are the most important tool available to help mitigate the transmission of the virus and protect children who are too young for a vaccine or for those who are not vaccinated. For this reason, Southeast Georgia Health System supports the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics recommendations of universal indoor mask wearing for everyone aged 2 years and older, which would encompass all pre-K through 12th grade students, as well as teachers and staff, regardless of vaccination status. Without mandatory masking in the classrooms, and to be clear, not outside, we fear that COVID-19 will rapidly spread among students, leading to students not being able to remain in the classroom. While schools just started in some districts, some other districts, we have learned that this has already been experienced by 1 or 2 school districts in the state of Georgia. For masking to work as a mitigation measure, it must be done on a mandatory basis with only limited exceptions. This measure would also help to decrease the spread throughout our community. Currently, the health system has the most COVID-19 patients it has had at any one time in the pandemic, with more than 120 patients under treatment today. We are at capacity and need the community's help to slow the process and the spread. While we're all hopeful that the threat of COVID-19 will be behind us when school resumed, the simple reality is it is not. The protective efforts that were put in place last year with respect to masking, social distancing, and practicing good, effective hygiene can help once again to keep our children healthy while minimizing the chances of them becoming a host to the virus. And we certainly know that this decision is controversial, but decisions made now in the face of the current surge can be revisited at such time as the Community Transmission Index recedes. So I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you, and I hope you have the opportunity as well to hear from some of our caregivers who are dealing with the reality of what's happening in our community with this most recent surge.
Thank you, Mr. Schöneck. Dr. Miller? Whichever you select. This is Dr. Aglagi. He's in charge of the ER physicians here and a part of the Baptist community in Jacksonville as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate that. I think we met last year. I'm going to be just talking about the things that Mr. Schöneck was talking about, that I don't have any kind of agenda that to support this, that all the data that they're talking about, but I'm just talking about the reality. You're talking to a person in front line. The information that you're getting, I understand. I have kids. I honestly don't want them to wear masks. But if they're increasing the chances of infection, if they're increasing the chances of adults getting that, we do not have any capacity in our hospitals. Our hospital covers 5 counties. There is no other hospitals in this area. There are people that they did not wear masks, they did not vaccinate themselves. They are coming in a very bad shape. We have 122, more than last year, July, that we had this. People are dying. This is not a joke. I understand it's very inconvenient. The same thing that we had, seatbelt, helmet, not smoking in the plane, TSA exam. They were all inconvenient and taking somebody's right to do something. But we all did it. We got used to it. So I'm just pleading for a right decision. You might have some information, a medical information, that with the CO2 level from the people that they work in the office. You're talking to the real guy here. I lived with this for 18 months. Try to breathe through this. So I have nothing to gain from this. I just want the community to be safe. And you are going to thank me when your loved one is in the ER, a kid or adult. One other thing is that our hospital is not a children's hospital. We can take care of minor stuff. We can admit minor stuff. If a child comes very, very sick, I need to transfer them. Wolfson is the closest hospital on Memorial. They're both on diversion. So if I have a sick kid, the next town is Atlanta. So who wants to go to take their kids to Atlanta or visit every day? So now I understand again, that's the reality of the fact. Now, if anyone wants paperwork, when anyone wants any data or information, we're more than happy to provide you with all the information. But we met last year. You were kind enough to start with the mask mandation. What happened? Nothing happened to the kids. We continue with that, and I plead for that today. If you have any questions, I'm available to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wagner. Dr. Miller?
Hey, I'm Dr. Danny Miller, the medical director for the Immediate Care Centers, also on the front line of this. I remember, I don't know if y'all remember me standing in front of you last year and the things that I talked about. The only difference right now between last year and this year is it's 10 times worse. The virus is worse, the illness is worse, the transmissibility is worse. Nothing's gotten better. I've heard a lot of talk about there's no evidence that masks are safe or that masks are effective at preventing this. First of all, I'd like to say, I don't like wearing a mask. I mean, my skin has not been this bad since I was 13 years old, and the reality of it is, I'd love to get rid of it. But if you want hard evidence that masks work, all you have to do is look to this community. Our kids were in school all of last year with masks, and we did not have any major outbreaks. We did not have to close our schools. We did not have to do distance learning once the kids were back in school. That is clear-cut evidence. I'll give you a little more evidence. Normally, in a flu season, kids are our biggest vectors. Kids get sick, they bring it home, and in an average flu year, at the clinic, I'll see 3,000 to 5,000 kids and adults with flu. And a severe one, 10,000. Last year, we were in masks. I saw 2 cases of the flu. If that's not hard evidence that masking prevents transmission of illness, I don't know what is. And that's just one example. We didn't see RSV. We didn't see colds. We didn't see any transmissible viruses. And that is hard evidence that masks work. And to me, the idea that we would, let's just see what happens, it's a little discouraging. Because we have a really good therapy now that we can use called monoclonal antibody therapy. And what it does is it helps kind of keep the virus levels low in high-risk patients to keep them from getting admitted. And unfortunately, what I see time and time again is patients coming in 7 to 10 days into their illness, incredibly sick, low oxygen levels, feeling awful, can't eat. And they say, I really would like this. And I say, I'm sorry, the horse is out of the barn. If you'd come to me 7 to 10 days ago, I might have been able to do something. But once the virus is rampant in your body, there's nothing to do about it. So prevention and early identification, that's the key to this. But prevention's the biggest key of all, because nothing is better than not getting in the first place. Like Dr. Oglagi, I mean, I'm happy to talk about this all day long. It's all I've been doing for 18 months, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Dr. Barr.
Okay, okay.
I'm sorry. I mean,
That's okay.
I'm just going just because my father's sick.
It is okay.
Hang ahead. I am hard to understand. I'm a fast talker. I'm going to take down the mask. And I am a pediatrician. I've been in this community for 18 years. And practicing as such. I have 3 kids at Glynn Academy right now. So I feel like I'm very familiar with our community, and I'm, been here enough to see how this whole COVID thing has played out. Don't love a mask because I'm as I said, a fast talker, hard to understand. So the mask has not been helpful to me. But that said, when COVID was at its peak, I wore it. My kids wore it. We managed. They stayed in school full time, and I was very pleased. Coming from New Jersey, where none of my friends were in school, children were in school, it was huge to be here. I reiterate what the Millers have been saying, which is, or one's going to say, is this past season, wearing the masks was a huge help. We had no cases of flu. That has not happened in years. I would test routinely for flu. All winter, 0 flus in our office, not a one. We had maybe a few COVIDs and no RSVs. This summer, the RSV blew up once the masks came off, and now we're seeing a bunch of COVID in the children, which I did not have. And I was happy to be mask-free this past month. Until about 2.5 weeks ago, I had to bring back the mask. I started seeing COVID in our office routinely. Every day we have several positives. And these are the children. My concern is most of these children seem to be getting it from the daycare workers. The daycare workers, a lot of times to me, are like I would say, like a teacher. And that's why I'm here today. I really feel like even on a month-by-month basis, just to consider wearing masks just as a short term until we know where this is going. Because at the same time, I've been in the hospital for a couple weeks nonstop because my father's been ill, and I cannot believe how many cases of COVID there has been. I can't believe how full the ICUs. It felt like everything we had reprieve. We were almost home stretch done, and now we're back, worse than where we started. Our numbers are higher. We're even getting now. I went to a delivery. Preterm baby, mom was positive, baby was positive, we had to ship the baby, had to figure out all these things. It wasn't like that even last year. This is crazy. This has become, I think, more of a crisis than you would know if you weren't in the medical community a little bit, maybe. And it's a little alarming, and I think if you can do a small, forward favor of wearing the mask, just for a month or so, just encouraging the mask wearing to see where this plays out and see if we get through this, because maybe, that's the one thing with the Delta variant, as they say, it spreads quickly, and then that's its own kind of herd immunity in addition to the vaccines. If we can get through this and then reassess in a month and kind of find some happy space in that, I would greatly appreciate that, just because I'm not sure where this is going, and I feel like it's not going anywhere very good, maybe, and I can't say for sure. I hope I'm wrong, but also I don't want to see the kids stay home from school. That, I think, is the most devastating, most difficult thing that I've seen, is the children have fallen behind. They've struggled to stay online. Schools, a lot of these poor children don't have good access. That's been a really difficult thing to do, and I feel like this is a lost year for some kids. Some kids managed, and I think, like my kids were at Glynn Academy, they loved it. They had a great year, and I think when they're older, it's a little easier, but even the younger kids did okay, but they did better when they were in person overall. It was the rare parent that could really handle being homeschooled. So those are my little points. I'm sure other people have other things to say, but I'm sorry for my fast talking, and I'm going to put my mask back up, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. I'm Amy, probably.
Thank you. Yeah, board John, we need to wrap it up a little bit. We need to get this. Well, actually, I just need to step outside. I got an emergency I got to deal with. So
Okay.
Take care of this.
Who's next?
I can go quickly. Hi. I'm Dr. Jennifer Miller. I am a mother of 4. I'd like to say I really sympathize with the parents completely. And you're wanting what's best for your kids. And you're worried about their pain and suffering and their losses. And I completely identify with that as a parent. As a doctor, and let me back up and say, I think we're all here because we want our best for the kids here in Glynn County. We want them to be healthy, we want them to be happy, we want them to be adjusted. And when I pulled the mission statement of the Glynn County Board of Education, and that's a lot, talks about producing informed, conscientious, productive citizens who give back to their community. We already saw it witnessed today by a man who said he was a graduate and his children are graduates. We're here because we care, but we're part of a community. And I think my concern is, and let me commend the board, I think when you're looking at mask, your plan was to to adapt to what the reality was of numbers, to try to not make it one size fits all. And when you met in July, the numbers are very different than they are today. And when you talked about spread, it was a different variant than we are today. So we need to acknowledge that. And I think knowing that your mindset is to adapt based on your graph of statistics, that's wonderful, because you can then turn on a dime and realize that we are now in red. The concern I have about the testing strategy is this. You have to have tests. Unless this is unless you can provide all the tests and all the staff to test the students to get the data, the whole system doesn't really work on just using school numbers. My husband's at Glynn Immediate Care. As of this week, they are not testing children. They're diagnosing them clinically. So if you want, because they don't have enough testing supplies, let me put together what everyone's saying. There are no more beds, there are no more hospitals to accept people, and we're running out of supplies, and we're running out of staff to do the testing. This is the hard reality that we're in. And if you want a system based on testing, who's doing the testing? Because if you're looking at Southeast Georgia Health System, you better ask the question if they've got what you need to get you the data, because you're not working as just an island. If the goal is to stay open, I commend our system, because of your good decisions of masking last year, did not miss a beat. Those kids stayed in school all year. Kudos to you for making that happen. We're in a different place now this year, and I encourage you to approach it in the way you did in that July meeting of let's look where we are now. We don't have school data. We don't have enough testing supplies to test all the kids. And you need to look at community numbers in the absence of anything else. I'm available for questions if you have any. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Can this be the last one? As far as
Dr. Brown is going to go. I'm Steve Squire. I'm the chief of anesthesia at the hospital.
They were there for
been there for 25 years. I'm just going to talk a couple things about masks. I wear a mask every day, all day long, and I have for 25 years in the operating room. I wear the same mask all day, every day. You know, the stuff you hear about, moistness, CO2, this and that, you know, it just isn't the truth. It doesn't work that way. I'd be sick every day if that were the case. I wouldn't be here. I would have been retired long ago. You know, kids do fine with masks. Things are so much worse than last year. If you want your kids to be in school and have a chance at that, if you bring them back without masks, we have zero chance of that working. Thanks.
John, in Marcus's absence, I just want to say that we appreciate y'all coming and speaking to us, but we're about 20 minutes of just the hospital staff talking, so we're going to take one more person, and then, yes, we appreciate that.
I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else has already been saying.
Thanks.
I do want to say nobody in this building wants to live in a world right now where kids wear masks to school. No one. We all just accept that commonality, please, because we're trying to do what's in the best interest of our community, our kids, and just combining everything. Unfortunately, It's an awful time right now. The Delta variant is ravaging Southwest Georgia, Jacksonville. You see it on the news. Hospitals are inundated. We're spending our entire days figuring out where to put intubated patients next in the hospital. We're planning for a field hospital in the Linda Edspinson conference room in the hospital. That's the state. Can't change it. That's where we are. We're under-vaccinated in this state. You know, we've made personal freedoms and choices. That's great, but that is where we are. The masking policy worked last year in keeping kids in school for the entirety of the year. We went through this twice, and my, how a year has changed our view on everything. I don't want any kids wearing masks. All I'm saying is that to flagrantly say we're not in a very fragile position as a community at this point in time that couldn't be reevaluated in 10 to 14 days is difficult. That's all I'm saying. Consider it. I don't want kids to be wearing masks in October, but is it unreasonable to say while our infectivity rates are so high and so many people are getting sick and our healthcare workers are struggling, is it unreasonable to just pause? That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
He's in charge of the hospitalists at the hospital. He didn't say that part.
Yeah.
So he's very involved.
Thank y'all very much, everyone that came and gave their input. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to say one thing for everybody. I appreciate everybody's input about the side that I'm not on, as we know, but that doesn't mean I don't respect your opinions and appreciate hearing what you have to say. And I appreciate the medical community that has nothing to gain to come here and to speak as well. So thank you both for that, all for that.
Thank you, John. At this point, I haven't discussed with Marcus what he wanted to put on the consent agenda, but I'll go ahead and set that up for now based on safe choices for that. So I'd like to, first of all, approve the agenda. Yes. So do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Thank you. Second. Thank you, Dr. Yergin and Ms. Gibbons. Let's take a vote on that. Approval of the agenda. John?
Approve, I'm sorry.
6-0. Thank you. On the consent agenda items, I'd like to suggest the following be placed on the consent agenda. And that's number 7, number 8, number 9, 10A, 10B, 10C1, 10D1, 10D3. I'm gonna let Marcus take over from here. Under the section D, what were you planning to put on the consent agenda? I have 1 and 3 so far.
I don't mind going through that. Did Mr. Blackerby stay around?
Yeah, he's still here. He's fine also.
I'd say I would like to go through all
Through
of
D?
them, if that's
Okay,
all of
so
it.
let's omit D1 and 3.
Flat panels, yeah, we'll go ahead and hit on that too. You can hit on that, or is this necessary? Okay. We'll just do all of D. Leave it out.
That's fine. Yep. But you want to continue from there?
You go ahead and carry this one if you want.
Okay. All right. So I'll I'll read the items on the consent agenda as recommended. Number 7, approval of the July 8th, 2020 work session minute meetings. Number 8, approval of the July 13th, 2021 regular board meeting minutes. Number 9, approval of the July 27th, 2021 special called board meeting minutes. 10A, personnel. 10B, field trips. 10C1, the GOOD report. Any omissions or deletions?
Do we have anything for policy?
No policy.
No policy? Okay.
Policy.
So I'll add 10E, policy committee. Any others? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as we've reviewed?
I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Yergin. All in favor? 7-0. Thank you.
So the first action item is the approval of district-wide flat panel displays. So this should complete every classroom in Glynn County should have a flat panel display board mount. And so that should finish that off. 2.35 million. Any questions about those?
Is that an elementary school, middle school, high school?
Yes.
Get-go?
Yes.
And also get-go?
Yes,
But it does not include Glynn Learning Center.
Do what?
It does not include Glynn Learning Center.
I'm not sure if they
We
are.
did not purchase any of
Right.
them. There are some
They
there.
use E2020, so there are no interactive classrooms there.
But it was brought up that the middle school students at Glynn Learning Center will have whole classroom learning.
Oh, no, not if they're gonna be there, they're gonna be the ingenuity that we provided. Elementary may, but there's not a whole, elementary will use their Google Classroom from their elementary schools. But the middle school students that are there for an extended period of time, they will go with ingenuity with the virtual option.
And that's obviously being paid for with CARES Act money.
Yes.
So the recommendation is to approve the district-wide interactive flat panel displays for $2,351,867. I entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Moved
Second.
by Ms. Sands, second by Dr. Yergin. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimous. 7-0.
All right, the next was a guaranteed maximum price for phase 2 of St. Simon's Elementary. I'm gonna let Mr. Blackerby talk about this.
St. Simon's Elementary Phase 2, this is just for the steel and concrete portion. This actually will be tagged on to the next phase, which will actually be the vertical construction of the building and the actual two-story construction of the building. We wanted to get on the front end of the steel purchase and the concrete, just in this market. If we don't get that ironed out, get in the line for production, basically drag out a tremendous amount of time, and the market's pretty volatile right now. So that was the reason for wanting to go ahead and bid this part out while the details are worked out on all the other portions of the building, such as electrical, flooring, and HVAC, and that type of bid packages. So this is just the first phase of the actual construction of the two-story building.
Does this fall in line with where we had budgeted originally the project for this phase?
I don't know that any exact numbers were given for this phase because
Okay.
the steel was so volatile. We did have a good response from the steel side of things, so we feel like we got the best price possible on that at this time. As you know, St. Simon's is going to be phased out, I believe, in about 6 different phases, just because no one is willing to give prices for an extended period of time on any of these packages.
Okay. I just want to be conscious of the total cost
Right.
as it compares to what we had laid out plans for. I mean, I understand the market and the situations there, but thank you.
The recommendation, I guess, is to approve the GMP Phase 2 for St. Simon's Elementary in the amount of $2,193,974. Entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Ms. Gibbons, second. Second by Mr. Mansell. All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0.
Guaranteed maximum price for phase 1 of Golden Isles Elementary School, who are now at the old Altama. And, that went well. They were in there today, and open house went well. So hopefully we can be back at Golden Isles before Christmas.
So in particular with Golden Isles, just a little bit of perspective on the pricing. I believe last Thursday when we talked, the numbers were hot off the presses, so I didn't have time to really digest what we were looking at in totality. But after I've had a chance to dig through all the details with that, the price is above what was originally budgeted, which I believe was around $3 million in the East Plaza. I'm not sure where those numbers came from initially. When I work these numbers out to a square footage cost on renovation, it's around $46 a square foot. Looking at a historical perspective for the last 5 renovations I've done, not in Glynn County, but renovation very similar to this. The average has been around $45 a square foot. This is $46,000, or $46 a square foot. This also includes a $300,000 contingency, which cushions that price just for the unexpected. So that would be returned to us if we did not spend it. Another element that raises the price on this particular project and the other three renovations is LVT, luxury vinyl tile, which is the flooring that's been chosen for right now. That could change. The cost on that's about $2 a square foot higher than traditional VCT, which you would find in a lot of the buildings. Golden Isles does not have any flooring that is going to be required in the hallways and the cafeteria, but it's terrazzo. But in the classrooms, that is $2 a square foot upcharge on that particular flooring. Where you save on that flooring in the end is there's no waxing or yearly polishing of that floor, of the LVT floor. So you save on a building like that, depending on the cost of the supplies, you could save $15,000 to $20,000 a year just on the upkeep and the maintenance of the floor. And looking at the HVAC, which is another big number in the project, we are reworking some of the ductwork. The ductwork in the classrooms, there's only one air drop right now, which does not give you the airflow that you really need in there to keep the air circulating. Typically on these projects, we've been looking at around $15 a square foot for HVAC, where this one comes out to $17 a square foot. So the additional cost in that is tied up in the ductwork.
Recommend that we approve guaranteed maximum price for Golden Isles Elementary renovation. That price was $4,011,807. Entertain the motion.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Mansell, second by Ms. Gibbons. All those in favor? It's unanimous, 7-0. Guaranteed maximum price phase 2, Needwood Middle School.
Using the same calculations for Needwood, we also have to add into the cost of the roof, because we haven't, that was phase 1 of this project that was already approved. The price on the total project cost, and this comes out to around $57 a square foot. Looking at similar projects where roofing has been done in the past, the last couple that I had for comparison were $69 a square foot. So we're actually under the square footage cost on that. Some of that is because we saved, although we are, say, upgrading the HVAC system, the actual cost on the air conditioning that is down to $12 a square foot. Although we are adding additional ductwork, and we are, in our estimations, upgrading to a split system air unit as opposed to the wall mount units that are on there now. The cost of those wall mounts has gone up a considerable amount, so we're actually saving on the square footage cost on the air conditioning system on those. Still have the $300,000 contingency, $380,000 contingency, because we have an $80,000 contingency in the roof as well. So there's a $380,000 contingency, which again, if we don't get any unexpected issues, that would be returned to us. One of the largest costs in this project is the flooring. And again, it's being calculated based on having LVT flooring in there. Needwood, if you've been in there, they don't have terrazzo in the hallways. It's all VCT throughout the building, so the flooring throughout the building is being replaced. So that's a considerable cost in that particular building.
Any questions about Needwood Middle School?
I'll go mention one other thing about Needwood. There's also a 300, it's kind of buried in there between structural, or steel, I know it says structural steel, with steel, concrete, and metal roofing. It's $366,000, which I have been talking with Mr. Tootin about the scope of work on this for an addition onto the bus port that was a part of this project. There is the potential, I believe, to do some additional planning on that and maybe change the way the bus port is designed and save on that. Or if steel becomes an issue and the price of that is, although it's in here now, postpone that till a later date. It doesn't operation of the building, so we could go ahead and do the renovation of the inside of the building and then come back later and do the bus board if we felt like we wanted to go in that direction. But again, that's, the price tag on that right now is about $366,000.
And that was just to extend it, so whenever children are boarding the buses,
It's
it extends all the
extending
way
the,
down.
it's pretty small bus board, it's extending the bus board, but also bringing an additional sidewalk out to the bus board.
And for things like the roof, those are submitted to the Georgia DOE for reimbursement under the guidelines?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't have the numbers in front of me. My assumption is there's probably about $1.3 million in reimbursements from the state on this project, on the 2 elementary schools. Again, I don't have the number in front of me, but my assumption is those applications are probably about $1 million each for the elementary schools.
So it would net the total phase 2 to about $4 million from our funding?
Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Or 4.1. Okay.
Again, I didn't bring the application with me, but you get $7.50 a square foot for HVAC work, and then just the general renovation work that's about $14,000 per instructional unit, which is essentially a classroom. And then there's additional money buried in there for kitchen appliances.
Right. Thank you.
Can you scroll all the way up to the top for a second? There was a 7-point something percent something that I was curious. What is the markup on overage?
These projects, when the construction management contract was approved, their fee is 7.5%. Up front, they went based off of what the original estimate was when it was advertised, which on this one was $4.5 million, I believe. So his original fee was based on that. It's the same 7.5%. His original fee was 7.5%, so you add 7.5% on top of what the additional scope of work or the additional cost of the project.
Okay.
I recommend that we approve the GMP for Needwood Middle School Phase 2.
Looks like that amount is $5,388,802. And motion to approve.
And 22 cents.
22
22 cents.
Not to correct you.
I didn't see the 22 cents. I didn't have it written down on the form.
And I know that we're doing roof work right now, right?
The roof work is about 90% complete.
So when will we start phase 2? Is it going to be?
Phase 2, if everything goes through, is approved on both Needwood and Overthorpe. We're planning on trying to make a transition with the classrooms that we need to vacate on that October, I think it's October 8th is a teacher work day. So at that point, we would begin to work on the inside of these buildings. Golden Isles, everything's approved. We plan on starting next week.
So we're doing this while school's in. We're doing this during the year.
Needwood, yes, all
Yeah.
3 of them will be done.
Right.
Golden Isles, our objective is the Eddie Potts that was here last week. His schedule right now has December 17th as being a date that we could reoccupy the classrooms.
Okay. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to approve that? You still got something? No. Okay.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mansell, second by Ms. Giddens. All those in favor? It's unanimous, 7-0.
And finally, the GMP for Phase 1 of Overthorpe Point Elementary School.
Overthorpe Point, we did not get quite the response from subcontractors as we did for the others. But at the same token, as I do the cost on that, we still wound up with, considering the scope of work, we're $57 a square foot, so is about $10 higher than what we would like. That's including the $300,000 contingency. This building in particular, though, has, just like Needwood, has LVT or has VCT throughout the entire school, so it would involve replacing, that floor throughout the hallways and everywhere, which again is the $2 increase. There's also some work on the classroom windows that needs to be done, which is it affects the cost drastically. And then from an air conditioning standpoint, again, when I did the calculations on it, we're at $14 a square foot for this particular building. So we are making some changes to the fresh air system to provide a little more airflow from air circulation. But in the end, it really didn't change the overall cost of what we expected on that side of things.
Question I had, and it's not really a question, I just know the GC fee is going to be a little bit more because of where it's at and how busy it is on St. Simon's. Costs are up, and it's a $200,000 roughly additional charge to work on that building. What is our 5-year plan on that? I mean, how much time do we have if we wanted to, or if I don't know what the board wants to do, but I would almost recommend we push it down the road a little bit and maybe buy some time and work on some of these other projects. You talking about from the reimbursement standpoint? Yeah, I mean, there is a time clock on that we do have to be complete within 5 years. So how much time would you say approximately we have that we could buy ourselves some time? I mean, I'm not the board may vote to go on ahead. But.
Yeah, if you pushed it off another year, you still have time, I believe, to complete the work. So that is a potential. I don't see the prices getting any better in a year from what we've seen so far. As a matter of fact, from the Steele standpoint at St. Simon's, just before coming in here, I had a message from Joe Kinsey that was here from McKnight Construction, and he was already concerned about the cost of steel at St. Simon's, what we've already done about it going up. We already have locked into a guaranteed maximum price, so at this point that's not our problem, because just as it's termed guaranteed maximum price, that's what he's guaranteed us. So, but in the way and some of y'all see it just as much or more than I do, the prices are very volatile, and I don't really see in the next year and a half a big change in the construction market or the cost of these materials.
Have we maximized our state funding for all of these projects?
Yes.
Because I know the longer you wait sometimes, the more funding you possibly get.
No, in this case with the capital outlay, time's not a factor. As long as you get renovation funds, after 20 years is when you're eligible for it. For most of the modifications, which HVAC is a modification, cooler, freezer, and cafeteria, but those are depending on the equipment, or a 10 to 15 year life cycle. It doesn't matter if you replace it 15 years or 25 years. It's the same. Again, roof replacements are figured on a square foot cost. HVAC again is around $7.50 to $8 a square foot. It's a set rate, and the $14,000 per instructional unit on renovations is a set rate as well.
So we've maximized our funding.
Right. Even I'm not sure if it's included in the funding for the, again, on the application, I have to go ahead and look at it, but a bus port is $15,000 regardless. That's what they say it's worth.
So what is your recommendation? That we approve this, or should we?
In talking with Steve Salmon, he's confident that we have the funds in there to do it now. My kind of getting ahead of myself, my proposal is probably going to be at the next board meeting, though, that we do tap into more state funding to free up some cash for St. Simon's Elementary. It was not a factor that was included in the calculations for eSplice, but the way working with our state consultant, the way we've been able to arrange some things in the 5-year plan, we may be able to get about $2.2 million for the St. Simon's modernization. So that will free a little bit more money off of the St. Simon's project that can be filtered into these. But we also have additional renovation money built into eSplice that easily covers the cost of these.
Do you think it's going to be worth our time to wait, or do you think we should?
I don't believe in a year and a half it's going to change the cost of it. I don't. But I mean, that's a crystal ball that I really can't give. It would be I wouldn't place money on it one way or the other.
So I'm understanding you say that the material will not decrease the cost of the material may not decrease. We know the cost of labor is not, but
You're exactly right. The cost of labor is
it's not
going
gonna
up for
decrease, but the
everyone.
cost of material,
Again, I don't know that it will. Again, some of y'all, y'all
What's
see,
your gut
y'all see it
feeling?
just as much as I do. The costs are very quick to rise and very slow to go down
true.
in any industry. Once the cost gets up, it usually is very slow to come down.
I think the question arose just for the fact that you had difficulties getting someone to bid the project in the first place. And I guess we were looking to see if we pushed it off a little more time, if that would help in the transition period of getting more people to look at it, or
Well,
the actual.
it may, but at the same time, one of our carrots that we dangled in front of the subcontractors was some of their pricing, which they're not going to go back on their word. Some of their pricing was based on if we get 2 schools, we'll deduct this amount off.
Oh, gotcha.
So,
That's fine. Well, if you don't see any benefit in it.
So
then-
that was, you know, that was one of the enticements for a couple of the subcontractors anyway. They said if we can do 2 of them, we'll do it. HVAC from that standpoint, yeah, the actual subcontractors themselves had a meeting and discussed it themselves in the parking lot over how they, you know, who had the manpower to do it and who wanted to bite it off. You know, who could do 2 of them.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm not hating on the DC, because I know going to North End St. Simons is not a pleasant ride. It takes time to factor in. I mean, a lot of these guys and stuff do work out there, but like I said, just seeing the $200,000 over the other just kind of throws a little bit of a question in my head. Not a question towards his character. It's just I know. But I mean, if you're saying something better, I agree with the price point. It may go up.
And I'd have to dig back into it further. Just looking at it, $100,000 of it, I can explain that has absolutely nothing to do with the location of the school. It has to do with the scope of work.
Okay.
Again, part of it has to do with that, the flooring cost, and the other has to do with the windows.
How about the time frame? Because the same contractor's doing the same, one's doing all of these projects, correct?
The same construction manager is over, you know, Lavender is over both of them. There is some crossover of subcontractors between some of the projects, but this particular, we have it flagged out to do about half of a hallway at a time, and it's divided up into 6 different phases on the schedule. Same thing, it would plan on starting October 8th, but it would essentially run through the spring, trying to get through all the classrooms. We've already met with the principal over there, who's identified which groups of classrooms she would like to go first, so that they're done before any testing at the end of the year. So we've already worked through those parts of the schedule, but a lot of this work would have to be done on nights and weekends as well.
Okay. I do recommend that we approve GMP Phase 1 for over 4.1.
Hear the recommendation to approve Phase 1 for Overflow Point for $4,410,259.10. Entertain a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Gibbons, second
I'll
please.
second.
Second by Ms. Sams, all those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Time to start planning.
Thank you, Mike.
Fire round's coming up.
That is all I have for the action items.
That brings us down to any other?
Yes, there's another. That's what the community out there is waiting for. Not that I blame them. I would like to make a motion that we approve mandating masks for the next 2 weeks to a month and adjust as needed as we learn about our COVID status.
The motion is on the floor. Get a second.
Second the motion.
Second by Ms. Gibbons. Any further discussion?
I'm a little uncomfortable with that because the motion doesn't include an exact evaluation date. I know on July 27th, your motion said August 20th for the first evaluation. What you've just proposed leaves more open-ended, like what we had last year.
I can say August 20th.
Well, I want
Or
you to be
whatever.
comfortable with it.
I
It's your
am, I
motion.
am.
Okay.
Because I think it will come to light within that time frame, and we'll see what our decisions will do.
So you're saying that we'll go back and look at it again August 20th based on stats and data in the community?
Yes.
Okay, all right, any more?
Hold on, can I make another point?
Yep.
Would it be based on our plan, the evaluation? I mean, that's.
Why don't we
what-
let him make
that's
his
what we're
motion
looking-
and
Yeah.
then, so think about your motion before you make it. if you want it passed.
I just want to be clear.
I agree
And when you say
completely.
ba-
I
You're
agree
saying based
completely.
on the grid or based on what community data is?
Not, it's not, our protocol is not based on community
Right,
data, it's based on the schools. Yeah,
So you're asking for clarification between the community data and the school data?
right, if it's the plan we currently have.
I think if we use the current plan up to August 20th, it'll either make it or break it. So I think it is safe to make a motion to mandate masks until August 20th as we evaluate our plan.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
And I second the motion
Okay,
again.
so you have a second, you
I
understand?
do have something to say. There was something said by one of the doctors that statistics that we proved that masks work. Effingham County did the same thing we did. They had school all year long and never mandated masks last year. So does that prove that masks don't work or they're not wearing masks work? So we can't say that it worked because they did it. They had school all year long with no mask mandate. The same size school district, less than 75 miles from us. So, I mean, whatever you guys tell me to do, I'm gonna do. I just wanna make sure that we're very clear if we're gonna reevaluate this in 2 weeks, that we use these numbers or do the numbers change? Do people come in and go, hold on, your numbers don't look good, we wanna use these numbers. So if we're gonna use the numbers that we created right here that we're looking at that I gave you this afternoon, or we're gonna use some new numbers that folks come in because we're gonna come out of the mask because these numbers aren't good. So we need to make sure we're clear on that, and that's your guys' position to vote on.
I think I understand that we're very clear that we're using the grid that we developed prior to the new breakout. Okay, so we're using the green, yellow, red as a guideline on August 20th to measure the data within the school, which affects the community, because, the children are interacting in and out, so. And then we have the elementary school students who are not vaccinated at all.
And is that gonna change? Is that gonna make the numbers change also? Where does it end?
I can show you where it ends, but that's a whole other story. I won't get into that.
I've got a couple of comments, so bear with me. So I disagree that this is a political decision for this board. I've been on the board a long time, and I trust this group. I don't think politics are playing any role in this right now. I will tell you it's personal. It's very personal. Just like a lot of parents and a lot of doctors got up and said tonight, I have 4 children that went to the school system. I have 2 in the system now. I have 1 that's immunocompromised, and we talked about that. I have a child with a VP shunt in his head who's had 19 surgeries, and if you got COVID, it could be devastating, and I understand that. But I sent him today to school on a bus with a mask, and he took it off when he got to school because having a mask on for him all day is detrimental to his health. I've seen it. I've seen the brain fog. I've seen the things happen. Listen, my son was born with a 40% pulse ox rate, okay? I get it. I understand pulse ox. I understand, everything, as far as not being a doctor, and thank God for my wife because she researches everything, and I just ran errands and got mad at doctors. But she was the researcher in this whole thing. And so it's a very emotional decision, for me, but I've heard from a lot of people in the community, and it's not about, and John, I appreciate the fact that you see the worst of the worst. You really do, and I understand that. I can appreciate it. I know it's difficult. But we are seeing negative effects, social, emotional effects. In the first few weeks of this, I've heard of multiple people who had friends who committed suicide in colleges. I had a son at the University of Georgia, and fortunately, he was well adjusted. A lot of kids weren't. They took away everything from these kids, and people were committing suicide. So what's enough? I know people can get sick from this, but what about everything else? I mean, not being able to eat together in the cafeteria, not being able to talk to your friends. I mean, my son was quarantined twice for 10 days at a time, and it was brutal. Sat in his room in the dark, and a lot of that's on us. So don't get me wrong, as a parent, that's still hard to deal with when you're trying to make that happen. I've talked to numerous teachers, and I know some are on both sides of this. It's difficult. You can't hear a child. They can't hear you give instruction. So if we're going to do this in-person instruction, we need to do it right, or we don't need to do it. Our numbers are still pretty darn good, and I'm comfortable with the plan we've made. I'm comfortable with the fact that we'll address it. if we mandate masks right now, y'all, we are not going to change our minds. We talked about it last year. You know, we all got to the end of the year. I wanted to take them off for the last few weeks, and we all said, you know what, we're at the home stretch. And I feel like there's just a lot more going on here than just, you know, the spike in COVID. And again, I'm not a medical professional. I believe me, I respect what happens. I respect the things that are going on at the hospital. I will say that I've sat there for 24 hours one time without getting to bed, and it has nothing to do with COVID. You know, so I hear what they're saying, but you know, I don't know how prepared we are. My son has been, you know, driven multiple times to Wolf's and life flighted, and I get it, and I understand hospitals get full and busy. But we're at a time where we've got to somehow address this issue where we can move past it like we have other things, you know, in our past. And I think that mandating masks right now for these kids, I mean, you're talking about kids picking them up off the floor of the bathroom and putting them back on, and teachers having to deal with it, and them sharing masks. And I mean, it's something I think can be more detrimental, again, from the social emotional aspect. And if you don't know the long terms of that, you can't tell me what long-term effect of that will be on a child who's wearing it right now in the kindergarten and first grade, and even kids that are teenagers. You know, and I'm not trying to get off on the medical professionals, but like last year, there was a little bit of a double standard, and I talked about this. You know, my kids are athletes. I was an athlete, but they also are band members, and they're in the chorus. Well, by God, we wouldn't have football last year, right? We had football, we had wrestling, we had volleyball. Some of that was inside. Some of it was face-to-face for multiple minutes. But we couldn't sing in class. I mean, give me a break. You know, so that took away things from my child, like this parent that talked about his child going to live with his mother so he could play in the band. You know, the impacts of that on that child and that father, does he deserve that? Because we want to mandate masks for 2 weeks, and the numbers don't prove it out right now. Y'all, I'm looking at the numbers. I asked for them again. I asked for them to be updated. I'm not looking at old data. Last year we made a mistake, and I think it was the right thing to do at the time, but we looked at community spread numbers. I haven't seen one PSA. I've seen a couple articles. I haven't seen any doctors at the Chamber of Commerce meetings. I haven't seen any doctors at the football scrimmage the other night when guys were outside, but we're face to face for 90 minutes, spitting and sweating and bleeding on each other and blowing snot on each other. But my kid can't go to class and learn without a mask on. That's wrong. So mandate it if you want to. My son is going to be at school tomorrow morning without a mask on, and I dare somebody to tell him to put one on.
Any further discussion?
Of course. I'm going to take some words from the infamous Millard Allen. I will respectfully disagree, and I will go with what this board decides, and that's that. So thank you.
Thank you, John.
You know, several parents spoke, and some said that we did not, some of us did not respond to the email. I assure you that I read each email, I read each text, and I had several phone conversations. No, I did not voice my opinion because we were coming here and want to have an open mind to hear from everyone. All the emails we received, they were 50-50, optional, mandate, none. So with that being said, and when we make a choice and we're looking at the community stats going up, and we're looking at the community that we represent and trying to enhance our children's learning, yes, there was a learning loss. There will continue to be a learning loss. But we have to do what we have to do to make sure that our community and our children are safe.
Any further?
Yeah, I'd like to say I do want to thank everyone for coming and sticking around and actually being interested in what we're doing. And because it's a village, it takes all of us. It raises your kids, my kids. I have kids in the school system as well. I have kids that were there today. They'll be there again tomorrow. We had one young lady, you know, I guess, accused me of being political or whatnot in the email. It's far from that. It was quite the opposite. I'm trying to keep it from being political. I'm trying to give you a choice to do what you want to do with your life and with your child and with your family. I'm not a person that is going to tell you what you need to do, the same as you're not going to tell me what I need to do. I can raise my child. I can raise my family. I don't need you to get in my way. I don't need you to tell me what to do for my safety or my child's safety. I think that's one of the problems that we have with the United States right now. The government gets involved. We took Ten Commandments out of school, and we've taken the morals away from the teachers, we've taken ethics away from the parents, and as far as the government, when I say we, and I don't want any part of that. So if you want to mask up, or you want to mask up your child, then that's perfectly up to you. I support that. You do what you need to do. But to accuse me of being political, I think everyone in this room knows that I'm far from political. I'm not going to get in a back and forth debate, which is what most of these emails want, and to go back and forth with written stuff and whatnot. That's not me. You want to talk, give me a shout, and we'll talk it out or whatnot. But as John said, we're going to have to respectfully agree to disagree, and that's how most people are going to have to do. But it comes back to a common sense approach, and that's what we're trying to do. We've developed a plan that we plan on sticking with. If things turn in a different degree, then we'll go that way. I'm hearing from most of the medical folks that it's almost like the students are going to be the killers if we don't put masks on. According to this data that was given out tonight, there's 118 patients at the hospital. Only 3 of them are 12 to 19 years old. So where's the scare? You know, so the scare is in the media. The scare is on the television. If you want to do the mask, that's perfectly fine. I agree with a lot of what Mike said. I'm not going to reiterate all those things, but I will not be voting for the mask mandate. I support the folks that do want to wear the mask, but again, we have a plan in place, and that would be my vote for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Manson. Any further?
I do have something to say. We've heard from parents, we've heard from doctors. We heard from one doctor that said nothing has changed between now and then except the numbers have risen. There is something that's changed. We have a vaccine. Can you still get it when you get the vaccine? Yes, you can still get it. But are your symptoms a lot less? Yes. You just handed us a piece of paper that says out of the 118 patients, only 2 have been vaccinated. The bigger issue here than masks is getting vaccinated. Educate. Vaccination is not a political choice. This is a healthcare choice. Our numbers would be down. I said back in May when we decided to extend the mask mandate for the last 2 weeks, I said, let's finish the job. We'll have the summer to get the public vaccinated, and we should be able to start school out on the right. I'm not going to change my view because people decide not to get vaccinated. There's 40% of us that have gotten vaccinated. I'm sorry that the hospital was overwhelmed, but I think the hospital and their staff should be pushing vaccinations more. And in 5 weeks from now, there'll be plenty less patients. Because it's already proven, vaccinations will decrease your symptoms. Right now, the plan that we have, Dr. Spence has the authority to mandate masks in a certain school if the numbers get to that point that we've already voted on. We don't have to reconvene and say, hey, let's mandate masks. He has that authority based on the decisions we've already made. He has the authority to mandate masks system-wide. This is a great plan. These numbers change daily. Heck, there's one school that may only need 4 or 5 more people to get COVID in the school, and we mandate that school to have masks. So we've made a decision. Let's move forward, and let's pray to God that He helps us get through this situation. Get vaccinated, folks.
Get vaccinated.
I wasn't planning on talking tonight because I think I've done a lot of talking on this in the past meetings. But I have to say, I agree with Dr. Jurgen. Our focus is misguided if we're looking just at masks. And I want to say about the plan that's been developed by our district. we were not necessarily asked for input. We were asked to review it, but they did the work. They did the research. They looked at what happened in our school system last year versus other school systems in Georgia last year, how things compared. They involved principals in dealing with this plan. And when you look at the criteria for moving from one operational tier to the other, there's a district component and there's a site-specific component. So in the green operational tier, that's my terminology, but I think y'all can follow what that is, we will move to the yellow operational tier if the percent positivity rate hits 2%. In the yellow positivity tier, and that's the school, if the district hits 1%, we all move. But in the yellow positivity rate for the school site, I believe I have it right, if it hits 5%, that school moves to the red tier. Hopefully we're not focusing on the red tier. But what I want to say is, if you look at the Georgia Public Health, DPH, Coastal Health District website, and you look at percent positivity rates, they may use a slightly different term, but they say that that is a good indicator of spread. So if we're going to look at that in our schools, we've said 2% takes us to yellow, which does include a mask mandate, and then 5% takes us to red. Well, when you look at their guidelines, anything up to 5% is a low transmission index. From 5 to 10, it's a moderate transmission index, and above 10, it's a high transmission index. So we're well below anything that the DPH is classifying categories of transmission index on their website using the same numbers. I understand what's going on in the community. Last year we saw very different things happening in our schools than what we saw happening in the community. Thank you.
Chairman, I do want to say one more thing, real quick, and then we can vote. I have spoken with a lot of teachers, a lot of elementary students, elementary teachers of students, and they have begged for not to have the mask due to the fact of the phonics situation, not to mention the social situation as Mike brought up earlier, but they are having trouble teaching the youth with the mask on. I want you to notice, or go back and look, and see how many people came to the podium tonight, and how many people took their mask off. Why do you think they took their mask off? So they could talk and we could understand what they were saying. Now you go back and you try to understand a third grader or a 7-year-old, it's hard to understand a 7-year-old without a mask on. And to put a mask on and try to teach that child math or try to teach that child phonics and expect them to understand what you're saying when they can't see your mouth or hear you when you have a mask on. So I wrote that down and I wanted to bring it back up because I thought it was interesting that even the doctors, except for maybe 3, came to the podium and took their mask off so they could speak, which I know it's safe. I'm not saying that. It's just from the standpoint they took the mask off so that we could hear what they were saying. But yet we want to go to a classroom that has 27-year-olds in it and try to teach them how to speak and how to talk with a mask on. So I just wanted to state that. I'll call for a question and we can move for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. All right, we've got the motion was made to mandate masks for 2 weeks, or to August 20th, I believe. Is that right, John? Mm-hmm. August 20th, we had a second with Ms. Gibbons. Is there any further discussion before we move to a vote? All right. All those for the mask mandate for 2 weeks, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion does not pass.
For 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So you were for it? I'm sorry, 2 weeks?
For 2 weeks?
Okay, so
yeah.
motion passes 5-2. All right. Any other? No, the motion did not pass, but that's what happened. Sorry,
you can make that mistake if you want to.
I was like, I ain't saying anything.
Make that mistake, yeah, right.
All right. Any other before we call it adjourned? No legal personnel. We already moved. No land. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second by Mr. Hogan, second by Mr. Mansell. All those in favor? R70 750.
All right.